Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 3 of the Les Paul Junior build. And in this episode we're going to take that great big lump of sapele and start whittling it down to look something a lot more like a neck. So in the last episode we got the body kind of cut out for this and did a little bit of work on the control cavity and the output jack and stuff. But we can't really go too much further than that until we get somewhere along with the neck. So we're going to make a start on that in this episode. Now this blank is some leftover wood from my 335 build, and I know that when I started that build I dimensioned this whole billet up, so I know that it's dead flat along that plane, and also I've kind of checked this with a square and it is square all the way along, so I'm happy with that. However, I just need to do one little check before I make a start and make any decisions on where I'm going to lay this out, because looking at this I think that the grain is going to run in this direction, and I want it to run in that direction because when I cut the angle for the headstock I want to be able to plane that way just to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to check that I'm right before I do anything else, and I'm just going to, I've got this number 6 plane and it's set very fine, and I'm just going to take a shaving off this end, which obviously is going to get cut away, and that is running that way. So I'll just mark that up with a pencil so I know which way the grain's running, and then we can start to get this laid out. Now there isn't a huge amount of leftover material there, but I think if I position that there and I can mark that, that is where the headstock breaks there. So we'll square that line across. And then I'm going to come back the thickness of the nut. And that is theoretically where my fretboard will start. And then next up, of course, we need that all important centre line. So that's 58.5. So that's working out at 29 mil. So I'll just set up my marking gauge, 29 mil. And we can run that line all the way down there. And then with that centre line marked on there, I'm just going to kind of position this template where it needs to go and draw around it. I'm going to mark this out more accurately a little bit further down the line, but this gives me a rough idea of what I'm working to. And the key bit of information I need is this line here, because my next task is to route for the truss rod. And what I want to do, as well as route the channel for this truss rod to go into, I also want to route the access, and I'm going to do that before I cut this angle off. So hopefully when I cut that angle everything will be absolutely spot on. So I just need to do a little bit more measuring and marking and figuring out for this, and we can get that going. And my plan is to route this channel in down the centre of the neck as I normally would with a 1/4 inch bit so that the rod fits in, and then take this bullnose bit and just extend that out a little bit. And if I set that up so it goes down exactly that far, might take a couple of passes, and then just extend that. Once I cut this angle in, that should leave me a nicely shaped access route so I can get an Allen key into here to adjust it. That's the plan, but we're just going to have to see how that works in real life. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to start the route for the access just a little bit in front of the brake angle. I'm going to start the route for the truss rod about 3 mil the other side of the nut line, and that will mean we've just got a very short distance to drill through for the access. And then I'll just mark off on the other end where I need it to stop. And I'm not going to square these lines right the way across so I don't confuse them for the nut lines. And I might even put a little arrow on like that to indicate where we need to stop. So we'll just get this set up in the vise now, and we can get the router dialed in and get those cut. I'm going to use the big Triton router on this mainly because the fence is brilliant and this will give me the power that I need to get this slot routed in. So I'll just set the fence up first. And some of you might have seen me do this in the past. I'm going to use this V-point bit initially to set up right onto the center line of this blank. So we'll set that right onto the center line, set the fence up, and then we can pull that out and just put the 1/4 inch straight cutting bit into the router to do our actual cutting with. But that will just enable us to get right into that center line so we know that we're going to be central with the actual route. Okay, so that's the router all set up. I've got the 1/4 inch bit in there. I've got my depth stop set for the first pass. I've measured the truss rod with my caliper and it's saying I need to go down about 9.5 mil to get that to fit. So nothing for it now but to get my ear defenders on and to just start to work this material out. Okay, so I've just swapped out to the bull nose bit now and we'll just do this little slot through here. Probably take 2 or 3 passes. I've got to go down about 12 mil, so I'll probably go in around about 3 mil per pass. Okay, and that's the truss rod in, and it's a very nice snug fit, so I'm pretty confident that that's not going to rattle about in that route. So happy days there, all went without any kind of drama whatsoever. So next up is we need to get this out of the vise and get this element marked up properly, and then I'm going to take it to the bandsaw and cut off this wedge shaped bit here just to make sure that this access is kind of sufficient, and then we can drill through there for the adjustment access. And I think that's left a really nice cut out there for the truss rod adjustment. So now what I need to do is just get a plane onto this surface here, get it nice and flat and smooth and square, and then we can think about getting the rest of this marked out and cutting an actual neck shape out of this. Okay, so now we can get this hole drilled in for the truss rod adjustment, and it's quite an exciting time for me because this is the first time I'm going to use my new Famag lip and spur drill bits in anger. I got these a few weeks ago at the Makers Central show. I've seen them recommended by multiple people. Ben Crow is a big fan of them, so I thought I'd give them a try. I wanted to get the big set that went from basically 1mm to 10mm in half-mil increments, but they were nearly 200 quid. And I had Mrs. Shed with me at the time, so I didn't go with that route. These are about 40 quid, so a fair bit of money for drill bits, but if they're any good and they avoid issues, worth having. So I've just marked this with the centre point, and I'm just going to drill through. Immediately, could do with being a bit longer. But apart from that, that is drilled beautifully. Let's just see if it actually works. Yep. That's spot on. Goes through no problem at all. I'm going to try and keep this hole as small as I possibly can, just to make sure we got plenty of material in this area. But it goes through and it finds the adjuster straight away, so happy with that. So with that done, we can now start to mark up for the rest of the cutout for the neck and get it somewhat more neck shaped. And there is the basic shape for the neck cut out, so made quite a bit of progress on that. Next up, I need to get this headstock thicknessed, and I'll do that on the bobbin sander, and then get some wings glued on so we've got the correct amount of material for the headstock. But I've cut an awful lot of material off this in the last couple of hours, so I'm going to set this to one side now for a couple of days and just see how that reacts, because you never know, it could move, and I don't really want to go too far with it until I know that we're going to have a viable neck blank. It looks absolutely spot on at the moment, but I'll just give it that little bit of time to settle before we go any further. So next up, I'll be grabbing this little bit of ebony, and we'll start to get this dimension down and look at turning it into a fretboard. But that's for the next episode, so I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.